Hello, my name is Justin Bright, and welcome to Kerbal Space Program version 1.8.1 in my next small step RP-1 career mode playthrough. And here we have the Martian moon hopper with Mars just peeking over the horizon of this tiny angry potato. It's not terribly angry, actually. I had a pretty easy time with it so far. But yeah, we are on the tiny moon of Phobos, bouncing around, doing science. And it looks like I've discovered the extent of the limit of what I can do on the surface, which is everything except for the surface sample, which makes a lot of sense. It looks like that one has, what do you call it? When I actually run this one, it tells me that there's no more storage space. So there must be like a slot issue of how many slots are available because we have... from Phobos landed lowlands here, but we don't seem to have room to do any more, so I'm not sure that we're going to be able to bounce around on the surface and continue to get a whole bunch of samples. I would actually have to go back up to the orbiter to drop off samples in that container. Doesn't look like I can just like transfer it from this to the probe core, because I don't seem to have a like transfer here thing. It looks like one slot is available, so I think that's all that I'm going to be able to do. I'm pretty sure if I had thought about it, that the number of slots for physical science that a probe core has available is modifiable in the vehicle assembly building, but I just didn't do it. So that is what we have. I didn't think about that at all, and so that is what we have. But that's fine. That is a small fraction of the total science that I have available to us, and it looks like we can still do a surface analysis that gets us a decent amount of science for every situation that we find ourselves in, which is just fantastic. So yeah, now it's just a matter of trying to find another biome. We did a little bit of work down in the lowlands, I think. We did a little bit in the lowlands. We didn't actually finish in the lowlands now that I'm looking at it. So I could jump back down and get that done, and I think that would be good for my next target. So I'm just gonna launch us up with RCS only because I really don't see any reason to be weird about it. And then we can just, jet around like this until we see a different biome, and that's really all there is to travel with this thing. So space above the grooves. The grooves seem to continue on this direction, so this may not be the right way to go. But I think it was down here in this crater that I had lowlands. And there we go, just with RCS we were able to, oh there we go, we have that now. With just RCS only we were able to jump to a whole new area and make just a huge amount of progress translating around the surface. Oops, that's back to the grooves. Hold on, let's see if we can dial in our landing predictions here. Our current biome is grooves. Landing prediction says lowlands, which is good. But this is going to be a little bit of a dicey landing. I'm just trying to look at this wacky slope we're coming down on. Alright, we're currently in the lowlands, so now anywhere in this area, if there's like a bit of ridge that I can land on that maybe would not be terrible. Just using RCS to kind of cancel our velocity and just scanning around. There we go, that looks like a spot. Why don't we just try to land right here? Yeah, this looks reasonably flat-ish. Oh my god, I think I'm playing Lunar Lander from, from the 80s right now. Holy crap. I just had a little flashback there. Alright, so just centering this and slowing us down so that we go boop, and then we bounce about 1,000,000 times. I'll be right back once that's finished. All right, there we go. We are landed in a new biome, same as an old biome because we landed here for just a second previously, but this is going to allow us to get all that delicious lowland science, and so we have another 30 days and 8 hours until the magnetic scan is complete, and that is going to be our benchmark once again. We've already collected 1,100 science with this thing, and it's just going to keep, that number is going to keep going up and up, which is super cool. And that is the reason why you should absolutely go explore. Any tiny potatoes you find in your life are incredibly valuable and full of science, is the lesson that I want you to take from this. So yeah, I'm just going to put another timer, and that is going to be it for our Martian Moonhopper for now. All right, so we are back here with LunaNet 1, which the situation is even dumber than the last time I was here, because in the midst of dropping off the second of 3 satellites, so we have LunaNet 1-1, which is in that first janky orbit, LunaNet 1-2, which is in the smaller 10 million meter circular orbit that I wanted to put this one in as well. I've discovered that I'm out of high test peroxide, so we don't have any. The only way I have to stop the spin is to use the RCS on the last probe. So that's pretty neat. So yeah, this is just the absolute jankiest of probe launch, but I really do need it to actually make our our solar back mission possible at all. Like, it's necessary for these satellites to be at least semi-functional if we're going to get that in under the deadline, and even then it's going to be very, very close. So yeah, what I'm gonna do is I just have this thing point retrograde. Or at least sort of retrograde. Here, kill rotation maybe? Gosh. Okay, so I'm just going to fire this up, point it retrograde, and then use the gimbals to hopefully, yeah, there we go, to get it mostly on target. And there we go. These orbits are just all the way janky, but like, whatever at this point. So this thing has one more mission in life. It has 1 ignition, and I know exactly what I want to do with it. We're going to turn that off. I can't really see anything. All right, so we're going to decouple the last of the probes, and it does kick off and begin spinning, which is just grand. We don't have any way to stabilize, but I can just turn on the... once again, the gimbals are going to save us, and I'm just going to deorbit this by smashing it into the moon so that it goes away of its own accord. There we go. Very nice. And then jump over to this spacecraft where we can now finish this up. So I'm just going to fold out the solar panels. Those are on. We are going to rename the vessel to LunaNet 1-3. And now it's just a matter of getting all the sun we can. There we go, 100%, and that's as good as I can do. All right, so this is the nonsense that is our LunaNet 1 constellation. So we have one over here, we've got another one over here, we've got a third over there. Hopefully that will get a good amount of coverage and allow us to communicate with our solar back rover, which will be on its way shortly, despite all of the dumb of the these bad orbits. I do have a fixed version of these coming soonish. Building... It's kind of at the end of my build queue at the moment because I've got a lot of other more important things, but that should have the provisions needed to actually get into a good set of 3 orbits that will remain in position. And I can just like destroy or terminate these vessels so that I can hide my shame. Yep, so there we go. That was our... The satellite bus has crashed into the moon, but now we do have these moving in sort of kind of a constellation-ish way, I guess. But yeah, it should be fine. all I really need is to be able to get some kind of communications relaying to get a signal back to Earth from the moon for our rover, which is building now and should be done in about 2 days. All right, so one thing that has finally gotten us is the lunar landing technology node, which I have unlocked and is now ready for parts acquisition. Important things, I grabbed this landing strut because it was free. I want the descent engine because I'm planning to use that on my my moon lander. So we've got that. And let's see what else. I need the actual lander can because that's what the moon lander is based on. Let's see, I'm going to need these, but I don't need them yet. So I'm not worried about using the ascent engine because I'm just using the descent engine for now. All the Apollo modules can wait for now because I don't really have the money for all of that yet because, well, we're just not using it yet. But when we get to that, we will be fairly soon. All right, just an hour away from our launch window to the moon. Thankfully, it was not in much time because we have about 5 days and now 9 hours to complete the contract for our solar back rover. So this is either going to succeed or fail based on this launch alone. Launching in 3, 2, 1, ignition. And we have liftoff, and the Paladin 1 leaps off the pad, bringing up our solar back payload up towards orbit to be thrown at the moon. And something is going on with my shaders once again, because that can't be quite right. There's something going on here. I'm starting to wonder if I need to just remove... So I had the other engine light mod installed, and now I'm wondering if I don't just like get rid of both and just give up on engine light mods altogether, because I had a different problem with my light happening when I had the other one installed, and neither one is actually like currently recommended in the install list, so I'm definitely using it at my own peril. For, you know, reasons that are pretty obvious at this point. So hard to say if that's the problem or what is going on here, but yeah, it's not super great to have my light and colors being a little bit weird. Yeah, so anyways, hard to say what's going on, but we are on our way up. Ooh, a little bit of transparency there. I can kind of see through this. That's different and new. Yeah, so I may just yank both of those, and then we'll just kind of see if that fixes it. But yeah, just tinkering with my install is something that I'm trying not to do quite as much these days, just to keep, you know, everything relatively safe and sane on here without breaking anything, because I'm losing patience for all the troubleshooting, you know what I mean? Especially as we get further into the save, or into our career, and I really don't want to lose our progress and where we're at and all that. All right, so just about 10 seconds until we get our first stage burnout and we fire up our lovely LR87 LH2. I have been using these, and we have separation and ignition, and look at that. This is actually an old version of the, or a non-updated version of my Paladin 1 launcher, because it uses this model of the LR87 LH2, not the big, long, extended nozzle one. They work mostly similarly. Like, the long nozzle one is actually quite a bit better, but for all intents and purposes they work mostly the same in this particular application. Like, I did not need all the extra delta V and all that. So I'm just time accelerating a little bit to get through this part of the launch. Not a big deal. So yeah, so this is basically a rehash of the mission that we sent before, the first solar back rover. Hopefully we are able to finish this up within the 5 days. Ooh, it crumbled off. I didn't actually... Not sure this one was supposed to come off like that. Hopefully everything's okay. All of our solar panels are still intact and all that. Anyways... yeah, the first solar back rover, everything worked fine, except I did not have the Probodobodyne Rove Mate, which has the Bon Voyage controller embedded. We're about to cut off and activate our Centaur. And away it goes. Fabulous. So we did not have that, which meant that we did not have the ability to just tell it to autopilot me to my next destination. And so I inevitably was driving it along using the MacLeod controller, or rover autopilot, which is in here somewhere. Yeah, the rover autopilot here, which did a very good job of maintaining your speed and your heading and stability control and all that stuff. However, I still managed to over accelerate, break the wheels, and then flip the rover so that it destroyed itself and it knocked off its antenna. So this is rebuilt from the ground up, but in a way that mimics the original quite a bit, but it makes a lot of parts internal that were not internal before. And that is going to help it to... oops, are we almost done? Yes, we are almost done. What is going on with my staging window? It has no idea. Okay, turn that off and just add this. Like, this feels new to me that it's been this weird. Because I should have more than 100 meters per second of delta V on here, unless it thinks that I'm going to have this entire thing on here. Give me an extra 500 meters per second. Yeah, I don't know. My MacLeod staging has been weird and wrong lately, and I'm not sure what I've done there. So yeah, this is why I'm trying not to do too many more futzing around with mods, because the more I do, the more things break. All right, so we're going to turn on landing guidance, and I am going to just fire up a home and transfer to the target. And now we are going to just take a look and see where we're going to end up, because we need to land here at this target. That is where we are trying to get to. And that's not going to be super duper easy. So what I'm thinking we may have to do is actually just get into a proper orbit and then descend from there, because this thing should be able to do that. We should have good deep space communications or avionics, and then be able to get into an orbit that has a more precise ability to land in a particular spot. There's no reason to be hasty. Yep, so we're going to start in just a regular orbit that we get to from here, and then I will make some adjustments on the way out. Or when I get there, anyways. All right, so we are all set up. We have what solar power we're going to get out of our panels here, which means that we should be able to make it to the moon just fine, even with our avionics all the way on. If I shut them off, then yeah, you see that we have tons and tons of power. Should not be any kind of problem. So yeah, we are now on our way out to the moon, and then we will adjust into the correct orbit to reach our target, and hopefully I will land a little bit more precisely than I did last time. All right, so we are just about to enter the sphere of influence of the moon, see the tiny pale sphere of the Earth off in the distance. Hopefully we should get there with about a day or a day and a half to spare before the contract fails. I must admit that I did do another rush build order on this particular flight, because I wanted to get this done before the contract was finished, because, I mean, it's kind of throwing good money after bad, but if I fail the contract, then I'm definitely going to not get the money, and I don't know. Whatever. I'm just trying to get this done so we can hopefully get this contract completed, and then we can move on with our lives. So we are now in the sphere of influence of the moon. We have just entered there. So my next step is we are going to enter into a nice low orbit. So let's pop open the maneuver planner. And let's just say circularize at the paraloon. There we go. And I'm also going to try to adjust my inclination a bit. Come on, there we go. Although doing it here is like the worst possible place for me to do this now that I think about it. So let's delete this node. And I'm actually just going to point normal. And I was going to just like kind of burn this on RCS, but I feel like I should probably plan a little bit better than that. So let's do that. Just put a second node down to give us a kind of circularization. And then I can now go back to the first node and just pop that up and down a bit to see kind of where we end up. And that looks pretty good. And that looks better. So let's go... Yep, about that much is what we're looking for here. Then I can adjust our second node. Yeah, that looks perfect. That's exactly what I'm hoping for right here. And we can bring this out just a touch. There we go. So that's perfect. That is exactly what we're going to do. And that will give us the ability to land a little bit closer to where we're going here. So just there we go. Because this is the important part, is making sure that we are just about perfectly on that marker for our final orbit, because we want to make sure that we can get to the first location very, very quickly. So let me just check on my ignitions. We are doing just fine, so I'm just going to execute the next node. Time warp spins up, spins down. You can't explain that. And yeah, here we go. So yeah, this hopefully is going to be pretty successful. Looks like I've accidentally left the RCS of our Sky Crane is on right now, which it should not necessarily be, but that must have remained on from testing. But I'm not that stressed about it, so that's fine. We will leave that, and we are pretty darn close. Looks good to me. Yeah, this looks good. So yeah, let's now go in and execute our next burn, which is going to bring us down into a nice low orbit. And there's no real reason for me to stress too much about what do you call it? How much time is left, because we're either going to succeed or we're going to fail at this point, and there's really not a whole lot that I can do about it. So I'm just not going to stress too much. The way Bon Voyage works is we are going to like basically set a target, and we are going to hope that the Bon Voyage module is going to be able to autopilot it correctly based on all the parameters that it has, and that will be how we get from one place to the other when we are going from Lunar Rover Site Alpha and then on to Bravo and then on to Charlie. Those are all individual locations that we're going to have to drive to. So there's going to be 3 different rover trips to get to Alpha from wherever we actually end up landing, then to get to Bravo, and then to get to Charlie. And hopefully those aren't terribly long trips, but they are going to be trips indeed. So yeah, that is what the plan is. And it really, the way Bon Voyage seems to work is it kind of depends on what it thinks you're able to do with your, based on your power. We'll tell you how fast you can go and how long it'll take you to get from point A to point B. So yeah, we're basically just going to see what that's like when we get there, and there's really not much else we can do about that. But in between drives, I'm going to be jumping out to the Space Center or something, because like very specifically, we don't want to watch. Like we want it to happen in an automated fashion so that I can't screw it up. That is the whole point of using Bon Voyage. But yeah, so now we have a nice low paraloon down near where we are trying to get, and so I am just going to use that as our as the point at which I am going to burn towards our destination. So we don't need to like deorbit any further. It's just, this is just what it is. Like we are going to, let's point towards the sun. But we are going to be, what do you call it? Instead of having like a deorbit burn that is going to put us close to inside the surface, like having it actually hit the moon, I can actually just deorbit from this point, and we'll just deorbit directly over and use our Centaur upper stage here to try to guide this rover as close as possible to our target destination. All right, so we're coming around, and I'm charging up the batteries best I can to make sure that that's all settled. I do want to make sure that the battery is as full as possible. Yep, so let's hold, I want to hold the power in the rover, not in the rover, not in the avionics up here, because we're eventually going to knock this off before we land, and then we'll just have this stuff. So yes, indeed. So we are now about 14 minutes away from the lunar rover Alpha. We are hurtling through space here. So let's target. We don't have a target, but we do have Waypoint Manager active properly, so we can see that right there. Which is where we are going. And we will indeed not have any communications here, which is pretty unfortunate. All of my LunaNet satellites are on the far side of the moon, which is just fantastic, and I'm really excited about that. Yeah, so much so that I'm wondering if I shouldn't orbit a couple more times to see if I couldn't get these around here. Shoot. Yeah, because I don't actually have signal right now, so yeah, that's just what I'm going to have to do. I didn't think about that before, but we should be safe to just fly overhead, just scream directly over the ground here. Oh, look, I do actually have signal. Hold on. How do I have signal? With what am I communicating? Moonfarer 1? Oh, well, look at that. Looks like we do have some kind of signal. So there is some kind of a relaying action happening here, so maybe I will be able to do this. Alright, so what I have done here is, at the last moment, we are going to enter into this burn that is going to give us a sort of kind of ballistic trajectory that I should be able to modify slightly as we get a little bit closer. And that's going to give us a little bit of a safer burn than what we are doing now, given that we have so many extra ignitions and everything else. And God, we are just moving so freaking fast. Okay, so let's just execute this node. And we are just going terrifyingly low. I definitely thought we had more clearance over the ground than we do. Oh, don't time warp. Oh, it's even scarier. Okay, so yeah, like I said, this is going to, it's pointed up slightly and it's over. So all of this should give us a final burn that should keep us from picking up too much extra velocity towards the ground from gravity, but it should also point us in the right direction of our target destination. You see that it's adding some vertical speed, so we are going to go up a little bit because I wanted to arc us a little bit so that we can be coming directly down on our target when we finally get to that point. For some reason, I thought a paraloon of 15 kilometers was going to be a little bit less terrifying than it is. But yeah, there's mountains. Sea level on the moon, I guess, is fairly low. So there we go. We are halting our terrifying traversal a little bit, and we are going up just slightly so that we can then come back down on our target. All right, so let's take a look at what we have done here. So that looks pretty close. We are a little bit off there. About 40 meters per second in that direction. There we go. So we'll do another burn at the top of this arc to correct our destination a little bit better. So let's just execute that. And it's just nice that we can do some of this stuff with our with the Centaur rather than using the lander, because the lander has something like 500 meters per second of delta V, but it's easy to just use this while we have it, because it's big, it's large, it has plenty of delta V. So, zoop, and there we go. There we go. That looks a lot better. That'll be a little bit easier to get down to our target. So we are already getting past the top of this arc. Yep, we are descending at this point. So let's point towards surface velocity. And we are 1 minute to impact. So what I'm going to do, we are going to lock in our traversal trajectory here. Move that up so that it all activates at once. I want to pitch up by about 10 degrees. And let's see, how are we doing? Okay, we do need to yaw a bit as well. So I'm just firing up our engines. Yeah, and you can see I'm just trying to get our destination to be pretty much in line here. How are we doing on engine burns? We have 3 remaining. 0 out our yaw because we should now be pointed in the correct direction. Activate our navigation. We are 15 kilometers away and approaching quickly. So what I think I'm going to do is we are going to point up by about 20 degrees, and I'm going to do one last engine burn to try to loft us over the target. Yep, there we go, and give us and kind of slow our vertical descent. And now I am going to say farewell to our Centaur upper stage. And switch to the rover itself, and now the Sky Crane is flying us indeed, so we are pushing away. And able to see what the suicide burn countdown should be. Because it's actually very, very soon. It's actually right now-ish. So just beginning to cut our velocity. And yeah, so that looks good. It looks like we are in good shape. These are very low. Well, it's 3.0 thrust to weight ratio, but it's still pretty terrifying. You can see our Centaur just bouncing over the landscape. But yeah, this should, in theory, get us down safely. You can see we are now cutting off all of our horizontal velocity, and there we go. Now I can lower our rotating around. Okay, we are in fact going to have to turn on the engines again because our thrust to weight ratio is above 1. And fire up these engines again. I'm not 100% sure why we're rotating this much. Slowly descending towards 0. Okay, maybe one more. And there we go. We have a landing. Put on the brakes. Fabulous. So we have touchdown of our brand new Solarback 2 rover. We have a couple days worth of travel. Hopefully it's not going to take quite so long, but yeah, let's go ahead and test this thing out. First things first, we need to kick off our Sky Crane. Yeah, it worked perfectly. So I just hit Z and spacebar in very quick sequence so that would fly off like that. Ah, that worked out perfectly. I love it when these things come together. Okay, so there we go. This is Solarback 2 using the Rovemate chassis, which is now very slowly sliding downhill unless I'm hallucinating. Nope, we are indeed sliding just slightly. But yeah, you'll notice that this thing has a lot less stuff sticking off it. We have this little dome on the bottom here, which has avionics, that is a science core full of all of the science experiments that we need to do. We have a big battery pack underneath here. Plenty of power, 25 days of power with no movement and no science experiments running. But when we are actually settled in to do some science, that is when we will see a whole bunch of power usage. But this thing is designed to survive the 14-day nighttime period that the moon has. So yeah, let's see if I am able to actually drive without destroying this thing. Because we have just 5 kilometers to go, and the Rovemate base is designed for this exactly, and it's actually really quite nice. Like it's very flat, very wide, low to the ground. The battery underneath and the science core underneath helps to put the weight all underneath, which pulls the body down onto the wheels, pushes down on the suspension, and keeps it kind of moving properly, right? I remember I had to tweak the wheels a bunch and like the gear ratio to make this thing move a little faster, which, you know, that seems fine, but we'll see about that in a moment. We're still driving on a little bit of a hill here. So yeah, let me play with the wheels for a moment and I'll be right back. All right, I torqued up the wheels so that they now have a gear ratio of 1.25 to 1. I'm not sure that's something that you can actually do just like on the fly, but the game thankfully does not force that on you. So that allows me to go a little bit faster over the ground here, which is good because this would otherwise take a very long time. I was going at a maximum of about 2 meters per second. I have this set up, which gives me a max drive speed of 8.5, which is significantly lower than the max safe speed of 11.5. So hopefully that will not, you know, that will keep me from killing myself on this thing. All right, so we are driving along, and this is going to take me about 9 minutes. So what I'm going to do now, now that I've kind of proven this thing drives, is we are going to brake and skid across the lunar regolith. Okay, so I am having some trouble with Bon Voyage, which should not be terribly surprising. I haven't tested this enough, I guess, so yeah, I'm not 100% sure what to do here, but the problem that I'm having is that it's I'm not sure if it's just not reading my power or ignoring my batteries or what, but it refuses to believe that I could use my batteries to make this journey. Like, it just won't believe me. It says my generated power is 0.12, which I think sounds right. Electric charge 0.034. Sure, that's not quite right, but whatever. I am using some amount of power. Fine. It says required power is 0.5, and I'm not sure where it's pulling that number from either. I assume that's the power that the wheels would use, perhaps. But yeah, it's saying that it's got not enough power, even though I have definitely battery enough to make this 4-kilometer journey. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure what I can do to get around these checks. So for now, I'm just going to drive to rover site Alpha, and we'll do that manually, and then I guess I'll try to figure out what the heck I can do to go forward to my future targets, because I really need to not do this manually because I don't want to. But yeah, I just don't think that I should have to, or I don't think I should have to be able to do this manually, right? Like, this Bon Voyage thing should, in theory, work based on the system that I have, but there's clearly something I'm not understanding, or maybe I didn't set this up for realism overhaul or something. All right, less than 500 meters away from Lunar Rover Alpha, and yeah, I'm really hoping that there's some kind of override that I can do to Bon Voyage. Ooh, I'm going too fast. because I don't want to do that part of constantly monitoring my speed and then time warping and not time warping, and then eventually getting careless and flipping the rover is all that I'm trying to avoid here. But yeah, otherwise the RoveMate chassis works great. Like, you can pick a particular control point and control from here, and then you can actually have it so that it starts out pointing up, straight up and down, which works well with your rocket and your sky crane and all that, and then you can switch it to controlling forward while you are driving. And now we have entered Rover Alpha, the first location, and now it's time to move on to the next one, which is actually not that far. Shoot, okay, maybe I can just drive this. Because that's a much smaller drive than what the first one was. So yeah, maybe this is just, I look into what to do with Bon Voyage another time, because the Bon Voyage controller is just, it's killing me, and it's just not it's just not allowing me to do what I need it to do. Just says not enough power, and I think that's because the sun is not directly overhead. I don't have full solar panel activation, which would, you know, help a lot with the amount of power that I have. It's over there on the horizon, but I do not have the days to wait for that. So I think we are just going to have to drive, and maybe when the sun is a little bit more directly overhead, I can test this some more. But for now, we are driving. One thing that I discovered is that we are actually hauling ass, like really dramatically faster than anything else has been on. As far as a rover on the lunar surface. The unofficial speed record was held by Eugene Cernan, who drove the lunar rover, like the moon buggy, as you may otherwise know it, on the lunar surface at about 18 kilometers per hour, which is about 5 meters per second. Yeah, so we are going about almost twice as fast as that sometimes. So we are just hauling butt. Rovers don't normally move very quickly. Like that 2 meter per second move speed that we started with before I torqued the wheels up was probably about how fast a real lunar rover would go. Lunokhod 1 and 2, which were Soviet moon rovers, drove on the surface. Basically, Lunokhod 1 was before the Apollo mission that sent the lunar moon buggy, and then Lunokhod 2 came afterwards. But they were part of the Soviet program, and they explored the surface to collect images, examine ambient light levels, perform laser ranging surface experiments from the Earth, all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of really cool experiments that they did, but and they traveled a fairly long distance. Oops, I'm weaving back and forth, but I'm remembering now that there's actually a stability control that I can do to just hold us steady on a trajectory and hold us at 8 meters per second. There we go. And I just need to, tap the brakes if needed. But Lunokhod 1 managed to travel a total of 10 kilometers, and Lunokhod 2 did a little bit more than 40. So as we clear our second objective and head on to the final one, we are actually doing pretty darn well, having traveled almost the distance of Lunokhod 1. But yeah, so this is very cool. So this seems to be working really well. This is actually a lot shorter of a distance between these objectives than I thought. So I think that I probably could have done this a lot earlier by sending basically the same craft I did before. I feel a little bit foolish, but whatever. We now have a very capable lunar rover on the surface that is able to travel fairly long distances if it has the power to do so. But yeah, so and it does have a full suite of science apparatuses, so it can do the Lunokhod thing of going and performing experiments at various locations. But yeah, so we're not going to break any distance records because I don't have the patience to drive around to the next biome, but we are in the highlands, and that is going to give us the ability to do some experiments here. I'm not sure how many... I'm not sure if I've done highland experiments before. Absolutely have done all of these science experiments at the highlands before, so none of this is going to be super new and exciting, but we should be able to do some long-term science here while we wait to use this craft again. So yeah, we are just a minute out from our final objective and finally finishing our roving on the moon, joining the ranks of the Lunokhod missions and the Chinese U-2 lander, which lander and rover, which was not actually all that long ago. So yeah, there hasn't been a whole lot of rovers on the moon. Most of the American rovers that we know and love are out on Mars. And yeah, that's probably something that I'll do in the future, is plan to send rovers to other planets. Because now I have this chassis working this well, I could send this anywhere, basically. Like, there's no reason not to send one of these to Venus or to Mars. So yeah, I don't see any reason why we couldn't do any of that. It would be very cool to get as much science as we could and rove around, and there's also contracts for just about every body. But there we go, contract complete. Congratulations, your rover took science readings from the areas that our scientists wanted to explore. And we got basically just the money back from all of the rush builds that I did. But we got 21 extra science. We have a new rover on the ground, and we have the ability to rove around and do more science because this thing has actually been really quite successful. So I'm really thrilled about that. And kind of more importantly, we didn't take a huge failure penalty. And avoiding that failure was really what motivated all of this. So to package this up, I am going to turn on some automation here. We're going to turn on the magnetic scan, mass spectrometer, and do, well, we could take a surface sample, but I'm not sure there's any point. We could only send back the surface analysis unless we decided to actually visit this craft. So yeah, there we go. We have our little craft doing its thing. And one thing you'll notice is that even though I don't have connection with any of my so we are connecting actually now with Lunacom. Lunacom 1 is out there, and that is what is giving us our good signal. Having driven around all this way, that is how we're doing it. So that worked out perfectly because we are still behind the moon. We cannot, or behind this bit of moon here, we are not going to be able to communicate directly, but we can use our Lunacom network, which is a little janky, but whatever. This is the little one that I sent out explicitly for this purpose, not the lovely LunaNet network that somehow all of the satellites got bunched up already. But, you know, well, not somehow. It was pretty obvious how that happened. This is my jank network that is going to get thrown away. It ended up not even being useful, but that's fine. This is how things go. But we have this rover on the moon. We are not going to be able to see the Earth from there, but I think this thing is cool as heck, and I'm really excited to have gotten a chance to pilot a little rover around and not flip it upside down. You see, I was very bold and I didn't even put on jets to flip it if the worst happened, but it does have a nice long snoot to sample the surface. And a big remote control antenna out of its magnetometer on the back. So there we go. We are doing these two bits of science, which are long-term, 30-day, whatever. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn off those two experiments. Whoops. Off. Don't care. Off. And then once power gets back on, then we can turn that back on, and we can just flip off all these things here. We can show it, but we don't need to worry about it because there's no super intense need for us to keep track of this at all times. But yeah, so that should work out great. And there we go. That has gotten us our lunar rover contract, which is one more step on the way to landing actual crew on the lunar surface. And I think that is going to do it for us today. We got a lot done with this, getting this rover down on the surface, making sure that everything went just fine with that, despite my failure to use Bon Voyage correctly. We didn't get any science done, but that is a potential that we have, especially if I make something that has, I don't know, maybe RTGs would work better. Almost certainly RTGs would work better in these scenarios so that I don't have to worry about day-night cycle, especially in places like Venus. Because yeah, this does open up the potential of sending out rovers to other planets, because I definitely want to do on Mars. Venus is another potential, but yeah, there's rover contracts for a lot of the bodies out there, and they pay out pretty darn well, especially the one for Mercury, which, I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. Like, they want to give me 2.5-3 million funds to put a rover on Mercury, but man, that sounds really challenging. But anyways, yeah, that is something that we will be doing a lot more of in the future, I hope. So anyways, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.